तो एडिट लूँ मैं मोबाइल पे रिकॉर्ड कर रहा हूँ, लैपटॉप से रिकॉर्ड किया है और अरे शायद उसका कैमरा उतना ग्रेट नहीं है, तो मोबाइल से शायद ये बेटर कर रहा हूँ। ओडी और डायग्नोस्टिक आया, ओडी Dialogic, OD, postmodern era philosophy, which drives and governs new OD in the organization. Of course, several OD experts over a period of time have gathered their ideas and thoughts and experiences in putting a definition for OD, which is encompassing its intent, philosophy, and abilities to make change happen in the organization, which is nothing but making a difference to the existing system by improving it. The difference that I see is the postmodern era. OD wants to understand organization not as an outsider but as an insider. It's part of the system, part of the problem and solution, and it's believing not in the kind of a framework and a model which really is applied to any given situation to arrive at some sort of defined problem statement in a very clear sense, and then start to interpret the policies of laying down a new set of guidelines, rules and frameworks which is eventually going to improve the situation or improve performance or whatever. So it looks like a very typical copybook style of diagnostic, identifying the problem statement and then discerning, dissecting, attributing various cause and effect to it, understanding whether it is a systemic issue or leadership issue, where is the issue and the challenge, kind of very idealistic way of looking at things, understanding that there is one such way of doing things in the best way, and whatever the system has to travel in order to cover the gap has to cover in some cycle of growth and evolution. Dialogic in a way rightly understands organization not only as a living system, but it understands organization as kind of a network which defines and exists and covers through the meaning it derives from all the relationships and networks within the organization itself, whether it is in small format or large format, how you extrapolate the organization or look at the organization from whatever its unique perspective to a larger business perspective. Now, here the solution has to evolve in Dialogic. It's not a straightforward diagnostic and then application of some kind of model and framework and then clear-cut blueprint and pathways for development. So here people are encouraged to debate and discuss. So partly, you'll find the similarity coming from various other models. The way Linda Hill sees her approach to the innovation in the organization, how leaders strive at, how they set the stage, in fact, and let people play their own games. And she very much rightly says that in an organization trying to innovate, which in a very rudimentary format is incremental development or growth or making change, developing something. There has to be two things, as she rightly says. One is that has to be a diversity, and the second thing is that it has to be a conflict. which is very interesting to find that unless you have the diversity where people debate in a very constructive format, uh, where you have to understand that it doesn't become personal or doesn't become distracted or taking diversions which is not appropriate for that matter. But at the same time, it is also important that we encourage conflicts, and we do allow conflicts to amplify in order to find a possible strength or weaknesses uh, in various kinds of thought processes which are being debated, and that really makes the whole difference. And I guess dialogic is very essential part, especially when it comes to people and their structure and the organization design, the frameworks, and people's autonomy, capabilities, all coming together, and also their desires to step out and make the difference and commit to do the hard work. As all these changes are not easy to make. One, because it requires a whole lot of personal commitment, and the other teams have to be equally synergized in terms of the commitment to make the difference happen, which makes it even more interesting in terms of putting the whole cycle of not the episodic way of, but episodes of change will always be there, but more focus should not be in terms of creating models or frameworks rather than experiments. As Linda Hale rightly says that, rather than pilots which aim to be making things happen in a certain way, and there's a little bit of learning, or probably there is no learning into the system, or they don't really reflect upon the learning after failure. They are meant to be successful. Pilots are meant to be successful, and that's how they approach any of their activities and tasks together, while experimentation is slightly different. Experimentation actually is not aimed to achieve a certain set of results in a certain way in a managed format, following certain steps which are calculated and calibrated for that matter. Rather, it believes in experiencing the various disturbances into the system, and then try and understand how exactly different ideas come from different sides of the stakeholders talk and dissect through what is the best idea to put forward in that situation. So that makes it all the more interesting. So let's see, I'm just pausing the recording here and just check if it really went all fine.